The 12 Chairs by Ilf and Petrov, Chapter 20, From Seville to Granada. Wait a minute now, where is Father Theodore? Where is the shorn priest from the Church of St. Frol in St. Lawrence? Was he not about to go see Citizen Bruns at 34 Vineyard Street? Where is that treasure seeker in angel's clothing and sworn enemy of Ippolit Vorobianinov at present cooling his heels in the dark corridor by the safe? Gone is Father Theodore. He has been spirited away. They say he was seen at Popsanaya station on the Donuts Railway, hurrying along the platform with a teapot full of hot water. Greedy is Father Theodore. He wants to be rich. He is chasing round Russia in search of the furniture belonging to General Popov's wife, which does not contain a darn thing, to tell the truth. He is on his way through Russia, and all he does is write letters to his wife. Letter from Father Theodore written from Kharkov station to his wife in the district center of N.
My darling Catherine Alexandrovna, I owe you an apology. I have left you alone, poor thing, at a time like this. I must tell you everything. You will understand, and I hope agree. It was not, of course, to join the New Church movement that I went. I had no intention of doing so, God forbid. Now read this carefully. We shall soon begin to live differently. You remember I told you about the candle factory. It will be ours, and perhaps one or two other things as well. And you won't have to cook your own meals or have boarders anymore. We'll go to Samara and hire servants. I'm on to something, but you must keep it absolutely secret. Don't even tell Marya Ivanovna. I'm looking for treasure. Do you remember the deceased Claudia Ivanovna, Vorobianinov's mother-in-law? Just before her death, Claudia Ivanovna disclosed to me that her jewels were hidden in one of the drawing-room chairs. There are 12 of them, at her house in Stargorod. Don't think, Katie, that I'm just a common thief. She bequeathed them to me and instructed me not to let Ippolit Matveyevich, her lifelong tormentor, get them. That's why I left so suddenly, you poor thing. Don't condemn me. I went to Stargorod, and what do you think? That old woman-chaser turned up as well. He had found out. He must have tortured the old woman before she died. Horrible man. And there was some criminal travelling with him. He had hired himself a thug. They fell upon me and tried to get rid of me. But I'm not one to be trifled with. I didn't give in. At first I went off on a false track. I only found one chair in Vorobianinov's house. It's now a home for pensioners. I was carrying the chair to my room in the Sorbonne Hotel when suddenly a man came around the corner roaring like a lion and rushed at me, seizing the chair. We almost had a fight. He wanted to shame me. Then I looked closely, and who was it but Vorobianinov? Just imagine, he had cut off his mustache and shaved his head, the crook. Shameful at his age. We broke open the chair, but there was nothing there. It was not until later that I realized I was on the wrong track, but at that moment I was very distressed. I felt outraged, and I told that old libertine the truth to his face. What a disgrace, I said, at your age. What mad things are going on in Russia nowadays when a marshal of the nobility pounces on a minister of the church like a lion and rebukes him for not being in the Communist Party. You're a low fellow, I said. You tormented Claudia Ivanovna, and you want someone else's property, which is now state-owned and no longer his. He was ashamed and went away, to the brothel, I imagine. So I went back to my room in the Sorbonne and started to make plans. I thought of something that bald-headed fool would never have dreamed of. I decided to find the person who had distributed the requisitioned furniture. So you see, Katie, I did well to study law at college. It has served me well. I found the person in question the next day. Bartholomew, a very decent old man. He lives quietly with his grandmother and works hard to earn his living. He gave me all the documents. It's true I had to reward him for the service. I'm now out of money. I'll come to that. It turned out that all 12 chairs from Vorobianinov's house went to Engineer Bruns at 34 Vineyard Street. Note that all the chairs went to one person, which I had not expected. I was afraid the chairs might have gone to different places. I was very pleased at this. Then I met that wretch Vorobianinov in the Sorbonne again. I gave him a good talking to and didn't spare his friend the thug either. I was very afraid they might find out my secret, so I hid in the hotel until they left. Bruns turned out to have moved from Stargorod to Kharkov in 1922 to take up an appointment. I learned from the caretaker that he had taken all his furniture and was looking after it very carefully. He's said to be a shrewd person. I'm now sitting in the station at Kharkov and writing for this reason. First, I love you very much and keep thinking of you, and second, Bruns is no longer here. But don't despair. Bruns is now working in Rostov at the Nuro cement plant. I have just enough money for the fare. I'm leaving in an hour's time on a mixed passenger goods train. Please stop by our brother-in-law's, my sweet, and get 50 rubles from him. He owes it to me and promised to pay, and send it to Theodore Ivanovich Vostrikov, Central Post Office, Rostov, to await collection. Send a money order by post to economize. It will cost 30 kopecks. What's the news in the town? Has Kondratevna been to see you? Tell Father Cyril that I'll be back soon and that I've gone to see my dying aunt in Voronezh. Be economical. Is Estigivnev still having meals? Give him my regards. Say I've gone to my aunt. How's the weather? It's already summer here in Kharkov. A noisy city, the center of the Ukrainian Republic. After the provinces, it's like being abroad. Please do the following. 1. Send my summer cassock to the cleaner. It's better to spend Oz 3 on cleaning than waste money on buying a new one. 2. Look after yourself. And 3. When you write to Gulka, mention casually that I've gone to Voronezh to see my aunt. Give everyone my regards. Say I'll be back soon. With tender kisses and blessings, your husband, Theo. P.S. Where can Vorobyaninov be roving about at the moment?
Leaving Ostap and the student Ivanopulo in a bar, Ippolit Matveyevich made his way to the little pink house and took up his stand by the cabinet. He could hear the sound of trains leaving for Castile and the splash of departing steamers. His heart was fluttering like a pendulum. There was a ticking in his ears. Uneasiness spread along the corridor. Nothing could thaw the cold of the cabinet. Gramophones droned in the pencil boxes. Primuses hummed like bees. In short, Ippolit Matveyevich was head over heels in love with Liza Kalachov. Many people passed Ippolit Matveyevich in the corridor, but they all smelled of either tobacco, vodka, disinfectant, or stale soup. In the obscurity of the corridor, it was possible to distinguish people only by their smell or the heaviness of their tread. Liza had not come by. Ippolit Matveyevich was sure of that. She did not smoke, drink vodka, or wear boots with iron studs. She could not have smelled of iodine or cod's head. She could only exude the tender fragrance of rice pudding or tastily prepared hay, on which Mrs. Nordman Severov fed the famous painter Repin for such a long time. And then he heard light uncertain footsteps. Someone was coming down the corridor, bumping into its elastic walls and murmuring sweetly. "Is that you, Elizabeth Petrovna?" asked Ippolit Matveyevich.
"Can you tell me where the pfefferkorns live?"
a deep voice replied.
"I can't see a damn thing in the dark."
Ippolit Matveyevich said nothing in his alarm. The pfefferkorn seeker waited for an answer, but not getting one, moved on, puzzled. It was 9 o'clock before Liza came. They went out into the street under a caramel-green evening sky. "Where shall we go?" asked Liza. Ippolit Matveyevich looked at her pale, shining face, and instead of saying, "I am here, Inazila, beneath thy window," began to talk long-windedly and tediously about the fact that he had not been in Moscow for a long time, and that Paris was infinitely better than the Russian capital, which was always a large, badly planned village whichever way you turned it. "This isn't the Moscow I remember, Elizabeth Petrovna. Now there's a stinginess everywhere. In my day we spent money like water. We only live once, there's a song called that." They walked the length of Perestenka Boulevard and came out on the embankment by the Church of Christ the Savior. A line of black-brown foxtails stretched along the far side of Muskervesk Bridge. The power stations were smoking like a squadron of ships. Trams rattled across the bridge and boats moved up and down the river. An accordion was sadly telling its tale. Taking hold of Ippolit Matveyevich's hand, Liza told him about her troubles, the quarrel with her husband, the difficulty of living with eavesdropping neighbors, the ex-chemists, and the monotony of a vegetarian diet. Ippolit Matveyevich listened and began thinking. Devils were aroused in him. He visualized a wonderful supper. He decided he must in some way or other make an overwhelming impression on the girl. "Let's go to the theater," he suggested. "The cinema would be better," said Liza. "It's cheaper. Why think of money? A night like this and you worry about the cost." The devils in him threw prudence to the wind, set the couple in a cab without haggling about the fare, and took them to the Ars Cinema. Ippolit Matveyevich was splendid. He bought the most expensive seats. They did not wait for the show to finish, however. Liza was used to cheaper seats nearer the screen and could not see so well from the 34th row. In his pocket, Ippolit Matveyevich had half the sum obtained by the concessionaires from the Stargorod conspirators. It was a lot of money for Vorobyaninov, so unaccustomed to luxury. Excited by the possibility of an easy conquest, he was ready to dazzle Liza with the scale of his entertaining. He considered himself admirably equipped for this, and proudly remembered how easily he had once won the heart of Elena Bauer. It was part of his nature to spend money extravagantly and showily. He had been famous in Stargorod for his good manners and ability to converse with any woman. He thought it would be amusing to use his pre-revolutionary polish on conquering a little Soviet girl who had never seen anything or known anything. With little persuasion, Ippolit Matveyevich took Liza to the Prague restaurant, the showpiece of the Moscow Union of Consumer Societies, the best place in Moscow, as Bender used to say. The Prague awed Liza by the copious mirrors, lights, and flower pots. This was excusable, she had never before been in a restaurant of this kind, but the mirrored room unexpectedly awed Ippolit Matveyevich too. He was out of touch and had forgotten about the world of restaurants. Now he felt ashamed of his baronial boots with square toes, pre-revolutionary trousers, and yellow star-spangled waistcoat. They were both embarrassed and stopped suddenly at the sight of the rather motley public. "Let's go over there in the corner," suggested Vorobyaninov, although there were tables free just by the stage where the orchestra was scraping away at the stock potpourri from the Bayadere. Liza quickly agreed, feeling that all eyes were upon her. The social lion and lady killer Vorobyaninov followed her awkwardly. The social lion chappy trousers drooped baggily from his thin behind. The lady killer hunched his shoulders and began polishing his pince-nez in an attempt to cover up his embarrassment. No one took their order. Ippolit Matveyevich had not expected this. Instead of gallantly conversing with his lady, he remained silent, sighed, tapped the table timidly with an ashtray, and coughed incessantly. Liza looked around her with curiosity. The silence became unnatural, but Ippolit Matveyevich could not think of anything to say. He had forgotten what he usually said in such cases. "We'd like to order," he called to waiters as they flew past. "Just coming, sir," cried the waiters without stopping. A menu was eventually brought, and Ippolit Matveyevich buried himself in it with relief. "But veal cutlets are $2.25, a fillet is $2.25, and vodka is 5 rubles, he mumbled. "For 5 rubles you get a large decanter, sir," said the waiter, looking around impatiently. "What's the matter with me?" Ippolit Matveyevich asked himself in horror. "I'm making myself ridiculous." "Here you are," he said to Liza with belated courtesy. "You choose something. What would you like?" Liza felt ashamed. She saw how haughtily the waiter was looking at her escort and realized he was doing something wrong. "I'm not at all hungry," she said in a shaky voice. Wait, have you anything vegetarian?" "We don't serve vegetarian dishes. Maybe a ham omelet." "All right then," said Ippolit Matveyevich, having made up his mind. "Bring us some sausages. You'll eat sausage, won't you, Elizabeth Petrovna?" "Yes, certainly." "Sausages then. These at $1.25 each and a bottle of vodka." "It's served by the decanter." "Then a large one." The public catering employee gave the defenseless Liza a knowing look. "What will you have with the vodka? Fresh caviar, smoked salmon?" The registry office employee continued to rage in Ippolit Matveyevich. "Nothing," he said rudely. "How much are the salted gherkins?" "All right, let me have 2." The waiter hurried away, and silence reigned once more at the table. Liza was the first to speak. "I've never been here before. It's very nice." "Yes," said Vorobyaninov slowly, working out the cost of what they had ordered. "Never mind," he thought. "I'll drink some vodka and loosen up a bit. I feel so awkward at the moment." But when he had drunk the vodka and accompanied it with a gherkin, he did not loosen up, but rather became more gloomy. Liza did not drink anything. The tension continued. Then someone else approached the table and, looking tenderly at Liza, tried to sell them flowers. Ippolit Matveyevich pretended not to notice the bewhiskered flower seller, but he kept hovering near the table. It was quite impossible to say nice things with him there. They were stayed for a while by the cabaret. A well-fed man in a morning coat and patent leather shoes came onto the stage. "Well, here we are again," he said breezily, addressing the public. "Next on our program we have the well-known Russian folk singer Barbara Godlevsky." Ippolit Matveyevich drank his vodka and said nothing. Since Liza did not drink and kept wanting to go home, he had to hurry to finish the whole decanter. By the time the singer had been replaced by an entertainer in a ribbed velvet shirt who came onto the stage and began to sing, "Roaming, you're always roaming, as though with all the life outside your appendix will be satisfied, roaming, ta-ra-ra-ra." Ippolit Matveyevich was already well in his cups, and together with all the other customers in the restaurant who half an hour earlier he had considered rude and niggardly Soviet thugs, was clapping in time to the music and joining in the chorus. "Roaming, ta-ra-ra-ra." He kept jumping up and going to the gentlemen's without excusing himself. The nearby tables had already begun calling him Daddy and invited him over for a glass of beer, but he did not go. He suddenly became proud and suspicious. Liza got up determinedly. "I'm going. You stay. I can go home by myself." "Certainly not. As a member of the upper class, I cannot allow that. Carport the bill, bums." Ippolit Matveyevich stared at the bill for some time, swaying in his chair. 9 rubles 20 kopecks, he muttered. "Perhaps you'd also like the key of the apartment where the money is." He ended up being marched downstairs by the arm. Liza could not escape, since the social lion had the cloakroom ticket. In the first side street, Ippolit Matveyevich leaned against Liza and began to paw her. Liza fought him off. "Stop it," she cried. "Stop it, stop it." "Let's go to a hotel," Vorobyaninov urged. Liza freed herself with difficulty and, without taking aim, punched the lady killer on the nose. The pince-nez with the gold nosepiece fell to the ground and, getting in the way of one of the square-toed baronial boots, broke with a crunch. Choking back her tears, Liza ran home down Silver Lane. The blinded Ippolit Matveyevich trotted off in the opposite direction, shouting, "Stop, thief!" Then he cried for a long time, and still weeping, bought a full basket of bagels from an old woman. Reaching the Smolensk market, now empty and dark, he walked up and down for some time, throwing the bagels all over the place like a sower sowing seed. As he went, he shouted in a tuneless voice, "Roaming, you're always roaming, ta-ra-ra-ra." Later on, he befriended a taxi driver, poured out his heart to him, and told him in a muddled way about the jewels. "A gay old gentleman," exclaimed the taxi driver. Ippolit Matveyevich was really in a gay mood, but the gaiety was clearly of a rather reprehensible nature, because he woke up at about 11 the next day in the local police station. Of the 200 rubles with which he had shamefully begun his night of enjoyment and debauchery, only 12 remained. He felt like death. His spine ached, his liver hurt, and his head felt as if he had a lead pot on top of it. But the most awful thing was that he could not remember how and where he could have spent so much money. On the way home he had to stop at the optician's to have new lenses fitted in his pince-nez. Ostap looked in surprise at the bedraggled figure of Ippolit Matveyevich for some time, but said nothing. He was cold and ready for battle.